What's up, everyone? Welcome to Most Positive Pop Culture Podcast, the Multiverse Metalcore Nerds, where each episode I have a guest from the podcasting or music community, and we explore their love of pop culture. I'm your host, Sean Mott, and my co-host of this episode is Will of Dance Gavin Dance. Welcome to the show.
What's up? How's it going?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm doing really good today. Yeah, just been writing some music, and that's always a fun time.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. That's good to hear. Love to hear that. We're going to get a little bit into your songwriting stuff in a second. But whether you return to the show or first time listener, thank you so much for checking it out. The best way to support the podcast, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform, hit that subscribe button. While you're there, if you're listening, give us a 5-star review. Helps more people find the show, helps the podcast continue to grow. If you want your daily fix of Metalcore Nerds, you can find us on all social media at Metalcore Nerds. Now, Will, Dancing Gavin Dance is a new album. By the time this drops, will be out. So that's exciting, obviously. Now, This is the first full length with Andrew fully on vocals. And I want to know, for this album in particular, and I kind of as the band has continued to progress, how has the songwriting approach for this album and each album as you went along throughout the band evolved?
It's constantly changing, and we're always experimenting with different processes for writing. Whether it's me starting songs, us starting songs in practice, somebody sending riffs back and forth. We like to try and mix it up, and I think that gives us different outcomes as well, so that it keeps it fresh and we're not just doing the same thing and approaching things the same way every time. I'd say the biggest change on this record was vocally. It was really collaborative. We wrote almost all the vocals while we were on the Falling in Reverse tour last year, where we had a lot of time because we weren't headlining. So me, John, Andrew would sit in the back lounge of the bus and just go over the instrumentals that we had already worked out and kind of all just try to write what was coolest and collaborate on song meanings. And this record ends up, I think, being the most cohesive lyrically, thematically of any record we've done because of that collaboration. So it was really exciting to be a part of that and to be able to help vocals in a way that I haven't before. So yeah, it was pretty new, and I think that turned out awesome. I'm so happy with the way that this record just really makes a lot of sense, and I think that fans will appreciate that.
That's super cool. Do you think that collaboration was so easy because you already kind of had like a language of music with Andrew because he played guitar and everything like that? Do you think it just like that you guys combining on now and vocally that was just already there?
Yeah, and I think that everybody was just in the right headspace, and we were just vibing really well off of each other, and everyone was really open. Kind of left our egos at the door, and it's like, let's do what makes sense for the song. And the song is king, and put ourselves aside, and at the end I think that the final product really reflects that.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing with songwriting. I feel like a lot of people, I guess it's hard too, because you can get self-conscious in playing music in general. So if someone comes with oh hey, that part isn't as good, it's not like a personal thing. Again, song is king. So I love hearing a band of your caliber saying something what can seem so trivial and simple, but like that really is the key to all of songwriting, isn't it? It's that needs to come first and foremost.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah, I think that's hard to maintain too. I mean, lots of bands and even any kind of creatives end up kind of parting ways over creative differences. I'd say that's one of the main reasons, and everybody wants to really take ownership of their contribution, but it's not easy, especially when you've been doing something for a really long time, to take criticism and be like, all right, I like it, you guys don't, let's figure something else that everyone likes. It's easier said than done, but I'm really glad that we have a group of dudes that is capable of that.
Switching into pop culture, I know you're a big Magic the Gathering guy. I saw you have a Stanley Kubrick sleeve. So obviously pop culture is a thing you hold near and dear to your heart. But I want to go to the beginning. What was like the defining moment that got you into pop culture? Whether it was a kid, a young adult, like what was that?
Definitely as a kid, I had a really big family, and we'd go to family functions. My parents would, go with the adults and I'd go with the kids, but I was kind of one of the younger ones, the generation, so they'd be watching horror movies and things that I probably shouldn't have been exposed to, but was, and it freaked me out. But it ended up creating a huge fascination, like being shown things like Nightmare on Elm Street and the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Those are really conceptual things, scared me, but also just opened my mind to a lot of possibilities and were really fascinating at the same time. So definitely kind of had me grow up with a real grounding and enjoyment for sci-fi and horror, which then kind of just became a love of film, and movies were always a big part of my life, and I watched a lot of movies in my room growing up, and it was like an escape and also a mentor in ways to learn from. And I'm part of the generation that was raised by a television, and I'm just lucky that a lot of the stuff that I was exposed to and that I enjoyed was stuff that I still enjoy now, and was very high quality and kind of formed my love for pop culture.
Definitely some stuff I loved growing up that I've revisited as an adult that have gone both ways. Where I was like, "Oh, wow, that still is really good," and stuff I'm like, "That is not how I remembered it when I was a kid."
But
So
yeah, that happens. But I think there was a kind of golden age in the '90s, especially for children's cartoons. I mean, growing up on like
Oh, yeah.
X-Men and Spider-Man, and there was just so many good shows that I can still go back to and enjoy as an adult.
Yeah, admittedly, before X-Men 97 came out a few years ago, I tried to go back and rewatch X-Men, and I could not do it. It was not hitting the same, but X-Men 97 I thought was pretty incredible. I don't know if you checked that
Yeah.
out, but I was honestly shocked of how good that show was. I'm a big, like, Marvel guy, but I was like, "Oh, yeah, this thing I loved when I was a kid is, kind of getting this, like, legacy sequel." Obviously, I'm gonna watch it just for nostalgia's sake. And then I could not believe the story it gave. I was like, "Wow, this is good stuff."
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit soap opera when you
Uh,
go back and watch
X-Men
the
always
old
are. Yeah, yeah.
old ones, but yeah, X-Men and Spider-Man were probably my favorite and still favorite superheroes, and I grew up on them, and I own all the Chris Claremont run of X-Men comics from the beginning of his taking it over to the end. So I'm a
That's
huge
awesome.
fan of those X-Men storylines, and I love that they just kind of picked from comics, and they did a decent job in the show from the '90s of making it digestible
Yeah,
for little me. And now I definitely appreciate the depth of the writing in the comics.
yeah.
It's definitely a cut above a lot of other comics, I guess, with just Chris Claremont's, literary background being. I'm pretty sure he was a English major, but yeah, he just wrote those comics with such a depth of character and analysis of thought that I can always go back to those.
Yeah, it's crazy what X-Men does in general of just there's so many characters and they all have their own kind of trauma or character arcs they go through, and it still somehow works. I want to get into Magic the Gathering. I know you're a big Magic the Gathering guy. I know little to nothing about Magic the Gathering. So I want this to kind of be like a sell the world on Magic the Gathering. And I know that's not going to be hard for a lot of people, but I've always kind of been interested in it, but intimidated by kind of the breadth of it. There's so much like lore, you need the knowledge to build the decks, then you need the knowledge to play it. But what got you into Magic the Gathering in the first place?
Actually, it was our tour manager, Gino. He's been playing for like 20 years, and he
Chino.
was with us for a good 3 or 4 years as our tour manager for DGD, and I had no idea that he played at all. I think he kind of hit it, because it wasn't the coolest thing. But I saw him playing at one point when he had some free time, and I, just walked over. And was like, "What is this?" And he offered to show me the game, and I bought a little pre-con deck and tried, and it was a lot of it was way over my head, but it just seemed like it could be a lot of fun if I understood it, so I stuck with it. I got to say, there's a learning curve for sure. that it takes like maybe 4 or 5 games to be like, all right, I know what I'm doing, kind of. But once you get a hang of it, yeah, it's a lot of fun coming from like a guy who enjoys chess and strategy games. It's kind of strategy on a really deep level with so many variables and different ways that you can go about playing. And I've been playing for about 3 years now, and I still feel like I'm constantly learning and opening up new levels of understanding to where I'm like, oh, this is how this works. I've been doing this totally wrong, and I have that epiphany like every few months playing Magic. So it's kind of like a really deep hole to go down. And if you're into strategy and yeah, just complex games, it's one of the best I've found. Now I'm definitely an addict, but there's just so much to learn, and there's so many factions too. Like I know that they've started doing these universes beyond sets where they team up with different IPs, like they've done Doctor Who. They're doing Spider-Man pretty soon, which is right up my alley. And then
Yeah.
there's people who have been playing for like a few decades who are really into just the lore that they've built with the characters Magic's created. And there's, people who really want the old school stuff only, people who like the new universes beyond and don't care for the old Magic stuff. There's people who kind of like it all. I never was married to the original stuff, so I don't mind the universes beyond being a new player. Some of that stuff's kind of fun to me, but I also really appreciate the lore they've built and have been trying to learn that. So there's just so much there, and it's all really quality and interesting. So learning the game, learning the lore, it feels like a journey that I'm constantly on, and it's a lot of fun. It's like you're unraveling a mystery.
Right. Yeah. That's see, even you explaining that, I'm like, doesn't make it any less intimidating. It might have made it more intimidating.
I mean, I'm intimidated. I've been playing for 3 years.
Because I have some friends that play it too, and they've kind of sort of explained it to me, and I'm like, and I as soon as you said the thing about the new and the old, I remember them talking about that, and I was because they were like, oh yeah, there's like two ways you can play it. There's like an old school way and a new school way, and like I was gonna ask you, I was like, yeah, isn't there like different ways of playing it? And you explained it all right there. I did see some of the Spider-Man collabs ones. There's a Spider's Man card, which for anyone who doesn't know what Spider's Man is, it's a collection of spiders that control a Spider-Man costume. It's a really weird, kind of deep cut Spider-Man character, but it's cool that they're including stuff like that. Like that's awesome. Obviously they have the people involved in that collaboration are very knowledgeable from both sides to want to include stuff like that. And I know a lot of people have been really stoked on the Marvel collab and stuff like that. I've heard a lot of hype surrounding that. So that's really really cool. Who do you play with usually?
They have shops that you can just go play with random people. I have
Yeah.
some friends in town who I just go to those with, and we just challenge whoever we meet, and it's a cool way to meet people too, and
Yeah.
you might end up finding people that you want to play with regularly. So it's very social, and most of the things I do, like music, film, are kind of isolated activities. So Magic's been a little bit more of a branching out kind of thing where you do put yourself out there a little bit, and that's kind of a fun part of it as well.
Have you played it on tour at all?
Yeah, so much. I mean, we just did a tour with the home team, and all of them but their singer Brian play. So,
Oh
I mean,
wow.
every day that we had free time and could, them and the guys in our crew who play would get together. We'd have like multiple pods of four because four is the most you can do in Commander, like the most social version of Magic. So, yeah, we were playing just constantly. It was tons of fun.
That's so sick. So you can like develop a squad like where you're on like the same team kind of thing?
I mean, it's totally open. When you're playing Commander, it's every man for themselves, and
Okay, okay.
there's only one winner. But if somebody at the table's running things, the other people can team up on them. It could become 1-on-3,
Mhm.
or there's so many ways to go about it because there's the game and the rules, but then there's also the politics of the table and trying to make alliances or arrangements with different players. Like, you don't attack me and take my guy out, I'll help you get these rid of these guys. And you have to be able to talk with people and negotiate as well.
That's so fascinating. So have you gotten into some heated like matches?
Not really, because you kind of have to have a sense of humor about it. And I
Yeah.
mean, you could play to like want to win every game, which you do, but I think
Yeah.
a lot more of the goal for me is to try and get my deck to do something cool, or do like the work the way it's supposed to work. And even if
Mm.
you lose, you learn a little bit, and you can take that to maybe augment your deck and make it work a little better. So it's just constantly like a testing. So playing the games, you're almost like always testing your decks and seeing if you can tune them up, or if you don't even care about winning that much and just want to do something silly, you can do that as well.
What's an example of something silly you can do?
I mean, there's combos and things that you could try to pull off, or
Mm.
you if there's a card that creates like a bunch of copies of something, and you just happen to be able to do that and pull off making a bunch of copies of something stupid, and the whole table could find it funny, and you might not win, but you could have fun losing.
Yeah, that it does seem like a game very much because I can be a pretty competitive person. I like playing board games among friends, but not ones like easy ones like Cards Against Humanity or anything like that. There's a blockbuster game where it's like you pick like 5 cards or something, and then you pick the 3 cards for the other team, and they have to it's like one is like charades basically, but you can't say anything, you act it out. One is like one word, and another one I think is like a phrase or something, and you have like a timer. It's like 30 seconds to see how many you can get right. That's a big fun one. That one can get pretty heated sometimes, but also hilarious because the act it one is just it's so hard, especially with some of the movies that they have listed. There's an MTV game which is very similar. It's all like famous songs and stuff like that. So those are kind of like our go-to. It's like I always would love to do something like that, like a Magic or even like D&D or something, but it's usually a thing where it's like we play for like a half an hour or an hour and then it's over. It can't be like thing where it's like, there's so much work goes into some of this stuff, setting it up and then understanding the rules and then having everyone else understand the rules. Where I don't know, maybe one day, even the friends I know that do it, I feel like they would welcome me into it, but I think it's like weird imposter syndrome of like, even if I did get started and like, oh, I'm the new guy, and it's like I don't want them to treat me different, but then you also want to keep up with everyone. It's a lot. It's a lot to try and tackle mentally almost. That's so
Yeah,
cool. That's cool you play on tour. That's awesome. I love hearing
for
like
sure.
what bands like do on tour that's like not the norm. Like obviously you go, you load in, you whatever, there's the normality of tour, but I love hearing things like that. Again, I know you're a movie lover, as we've obviously covered. Is that a thing you try to do on tour as well? Go to the movies?
Yeah, actually, we try to do movies on days off a lot of the times. Also, I will, log in on our bus to my film apps, and a lot of times I like to show the other guys movies and things that I think they'll like that
Oh,
I've discovered
that's
because
awesome.
I, watch a ton of stuff. So, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of often the one who's like, you got to see this, and show people older movies, newer movies, just whatever I think's cool. And well, sometimes really trippy stuff too, to just mess with the dudes.
The worst recommendation I gave to someone, and worst by I knew exactly what I was doing. There was a band locally that when I was in college, I would hang out. I would go to their band practice, and then we'd hang out after, usually watch movies, get pizza or whatever. And the last one before I moved back home after I graduated, I showed them the Antichrist, and I've already watched it.
Oh jeez.
So I was like, guys, we gotta watch this movie. And, and if no one's seen the Antichrist, there's some pretty wild scenes of it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
Willem
Lars
Dafoe's in
von
it, and
Trier is pretty messed up.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
not a
I also
normal.
no, nothing Lars von Trier does is normal. I do like a lot of his stuff, and yeah, our bass player actually brings up every once in a while when I showed him the house that Jack built, which is another Lars von Trier movie that's super fucked up. And I think it scarred him.
It was so funny because, like, we were like saying our goodbyes, and it's not like we didn't see each other forever. I live in the same town I went to college now, but it was just like such a weird moment. End of that like chapter of our friendship. They're like, oh, well, remind us never have you recommend a movie ever again. See you later, I guess. That so. Is there been like a super weird movie you've showed the band that they're like, what the fuck was that?
All kinds of stuff. I'd say one of my favorites in the last few years was a movie called Under the Silver Lake. And that movie definitely perplexes everybody. But I've probably watched it like 10 times now. I just thought it was so interesting and goes all over the place. I'm a big fan of the weird for sure, but I like everything. I watch
Same.
anything just to see if there's something to take from it.
Yeah, same here. I sci-fi is probably my favorite. I'm a big fan of horror, but I'll watch anything because it's I love seeing what something has something to offer, and I feel like every piece of medium kind of or like genre or whatever kind of has its place in the world. Because like I love a good shut off your brain kind of dumb movie to watch sometimes, but then I also love one that like you just think about for weeks on end and you just can't stop thinking about it to the point where you're like
Oh, yeah.
obsessing over it. So it's like, yeah, I'm very much the same way where it's like I just like consuming whatever it is. And then that goes for music and everything too. And then I always love the same people, like going to people who have seen the same thing and like just seeing what they thought of it, even if it's completely different. I love hearing like how stuff affects people differently and what they took from something compared to what I took from something. And I kind of love we're in this new era of certain kinds of stuff where the people creating this are more vague about their answers of stuff because I think like film and TV are made to elicit a reaction and a response out of whoever it is that views it. And that's a big part of the thing. And I feel like too many people are obsessed with getting everything answered. And it's such a thing. It's a thing I think about constantly because they're like, oh, I didn't like this movie because they didn't answer X question. And I can't really say what they're saying is wrong because for their opinion, it's not. But at the same time, I'm like, well, yeah, I don't think it needs to be answered because if the questions left answered didn't take away from the plot, then that's fine. And there's definitely both on both sides. There's stuff I've seen where I'm like they could have fleshed that out a little bit more. That's a little different, but I'm so fascinated by people's kind of need to have everything answered lately.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something I really appreciate about like you could even take Kubrick. He's probably my favorite director. Some of his
Right.
movies, I mean, his movies kind of all explore the dark side of humanity in a different way. They're almost all horror movies in some kind of way. But like 2001, that movie's got a lot of room for interpretation, and especially
Yeah.
the ending. And there is like, it does make sense, but I feel like part of the fun of that kind of stuff is that it leaves you with big questions that not all questions are answerable. So things that make you think and that you could think on and try to interpret yourself, it expands your brain and your way of thinking without needing to know exactly what the artist meant. And then the other side of that, while creating art, sometimes you'll leave lyrics especially vague and people will be like, I don't know what this means. It's just gibberish. It's like, no, it's not, but it's just meant to make you think or just put something in a way that I
Yeah.
understand, but you can interpret and think of it however you want. And then I won't say it's wrong. It's just how you feel about it. So yeah, the art can affect different people differently, and then the way that we perceive it, and then we can discuss it and learn more about ourselves and each other through the way that we perceive art. I think that's a really cool thing about it.
Yeah, I think it's the most beautiful thing about like expression of art in any form is the discussion after you consume that thing. It's like been the most fun thing about this because my biggest goal with this show was to not only I guess bring together people that didn't know these people were like X person is into this or X person is into that, and then kind of because for a long time like being a quote unquote nerd was kind of frowned upon, I guess. And now like being a nerd is cool, I guess. Whatever, like we've said, like, we both grew up on 90s, comic cartoons. Like it's kind of always been there. And a lot of the people I end up connecting with, whether it's on the podcast or outside talking about things podcast related, all had similar things. And that's just a beautiful thing to have, and it's all those people who are usually involved in music too. So it's cool to see those worlds meld. That's been the coolest thing about this is to have people be more open about this stuff and be able to have something to talk about like that. Because there's definitely been people too where they're like, yeah, I have like no one to really talk about this stuff with. And it's like, it's cool to see that, that gap shorten and create like a voice to have and share those feelings with each other. So you said you watch a lot of stuff. What have you been watching lately?
I'd say the thing that was most impacting that I watched recently was Bring Her Back, that horror film. It was pretty dark and just had some kind of gut wrenching moments that usually aren't done as effectively as they did it. So I was impressed with how they were able to pull off a lot of stuff. The very ending, I don't, have you seen it?
So here's the thing. People have been telling me, I love Talk to Me. It's the same writer director duo did that movie too. And I was stoked to watch this. It was only in theaters for like a very short time. I missed it in theaters. I was very bummed about it. And so I've just been kind of like waiting to watch it, I guess. And then I've had so many people be like, you need to watch this movie. And then I saw that your wonderful publicist, Becky, mentioned that you've seen it. So I was like, I'm going to watch it. I watched it yesterday. And let me tell you, I don't think I've had a movie mentally affect me as much as this movie in a really long time. In the way that this movie creates such an atmosphere of dread and uneasiness without even really doing anything. And there's a few scenes that are like pretty gross, but like from the jump, you just feel like icky watching it. And that to me is something that's so impressive. And I was like, whatever these dudes do, I will be there. Like I will be there. All I'll say is the knife scene, Jesus. I don't think that, and it's obviously the visuals of that is brutal, but it's the sound. The sound was the worst part for me. I am like, oh my God. And I think it's gonna be imprinted in my brain forever. So I watched it yesterday. But yes, the ending. What were you gonna say?
I thought it was pretty damn good, and yeah, I agree. It had. I think that horror relies so much on jump scares nowadays, which I could enjoy a lot of jump scare stuff. I'm not like
For sure
totally against it, but when atmosphere and dread are like really played up and done well, there's just no substitute for that as far as like real horror goes, in my opinion. I think that movie really nailed that. Yeah, I'd say the only criticism that I really have of it is the ending. I wanted it to just go through with kind of what they were building up to instead of kind of the little bit of a twist that they had. I guess I'd say spoilers right now, but just at the ending, when the girl kind of yells out, the other lady lets her go. I kind of felt like that was kind of like Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice moment where it's like Martha, and he just kind of, I was like, come on, like after all the stuff that's happened up to this point, just that wouldn't stop her. So I thought that was kind of dumb, and I instantly was taken back to that moment in that moment. But other than that, I thought the movie was just brilliant.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I love the movie. I think the ending was probably the weakest part, but there's something to it that also made me think as the more I thought about it. Because I remember, I think I rewound the scene a couple times because I was like, wait, what? Because at first I thought it worked, and again, I'll mark in the time codes when we're talking about spoilers. So if anyone still hasn't watched this movie, you can skip ahead to that. So I thought it worked at first, and then when she runs away, I was like, oh, it didn't work. And then me thinking about this woman did all of this fucked up shit because she thought this weird ritual was going to work. And obviously some things were working. That kid she kidnapped, there was something going on with that kid. Obviously something was working in some capacity to make him all, whatever was going on with him throughout the course of that movie.
Yeah.
But then to the fact that like her grief drove her to do all this stuff, ruin these other children's lives completely, kill another children and was willing to kill children to get her daughter back. And then the fact that it all didn't work, it was like, it's hard because they didn't like beat you over the head with it. It's like such a small moment. And I can see what you mean with her saying mom, and it is a very Martha moment. Now that you mentioned it, that's all I can think about. And it's kind of making me backpedal this thought. But the fact that she was so obsessive and like, because that's what this movie about. This movie is about loss, a loss from all ends of the spectrum, but especially the mother and what that loss has driven her to do. And the fact that she did all this and then it didn't work is so awful. Like, that's like, yes, the little girl gets away, but holy shit, that's a pretty dark ending. You know what I mean? Like, and I
Oh
guess
yeah.
like the bad guy loses, but like at the end of the day, you're like, damn, she did all of that for nothing. Nothing at all. That's
Yeah, and I mean, even if it went through, I feel like it would have been like a Pet Cemetery kind of
oh
thing, where it's not going to
yeah.
be like happy ending. She'd probably come back all wrong. So whatever she
Yeah.
was leading towards was already flawed. But I just
Yeah.
wanted to see it.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it would have been cool to see. Like, I wonder if there's like I wonder if I'm guessing they probably thought that there might be like an alternate ending out there somewhere. I'll have to research that and see if there is one out there. I'm stoked for Talk to Me Too. That's coming. I know I think I don't know if they wrote two scripts or they just had two ideas, because they were like, we're either going to continue where the first one left off, or they're going to tell another story just in the universe. And there has been like, I think they've hinted that like Bring Her Back and Talk to Me existed in the same world. So it would be cool to see the tapes like revisited in some way, shape, or form, because like they don't say anything about the tapes. You just see some scenes with them and you're kind of like, I guess there's some weird magic going on, and that's all you got. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so it'd be cool to like, and I don't like when horror fully explains things. That's when stuff, because usually the result isn't as satisfying as you want it to be. Like, it never really is. So it would be cool, but it'd be cool to explore it a little. Like, I mean, the hand is such a fascinating thing from Talk to Me. Like, that's so wild. And I would even care if we find out where that came from, but like, there's obviously a much more like ritualistic explanation to the hand. And it would be cool to at least get that with the tapes, of someone being like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is how they work. And like, it would be like, even if they did like a prequel thing of some sort, like in the Talk to Me universe or whatever, or if they just do a new movie and it comes out and then like it ends with someone like handing the tapes to the mother character or something, that'd be kind of cool. I love weird twists like that. It happens ever so often in horror movies. And I think it's always just such a clever, like Split did it, obviously. What, like the fifth Final Destination movie did it. It's just like, it'd be cool to see something like that happen, because I feel like it's such a rarity to fully surprise someone like that, to tie something in together. But those two are incredible. Like what they think of, it feels so like fresh while still feeling very much in line of like what's happening like in the horror genre as a whole. So I'm just on board for whatever they're gonna do next. You've been watching anything else?
On television, I've been watching the new Alien Earth show, but I gotta say I have a lot of issues with it. I don't know if you're a big
Really?
Alien fan, but I really love the Alien franchise and the show. I just feel like they really tried to shoehorn in like teens as hard as they could, and I wasn't super happy with the explanation. And I feel like a problem that I have with a lot of modern writing in TV and movies is the characters' actions don't really make sense with the development and what you're told about the characters. Like in the new Alien Earth show, they, it's not really a spoiler because in the first episode they explain that they put children's minds into synthetic bodies. And then
Mhm.
they're talking about them. They say that these synthetic bodies don't have the impulses of humans. They're not human anymore. They're like some kind of hybrid with like synthetic mental abilities, but they still have the child's brain, and they're not sure how it's going to develop. So I thought that was really interesting. But then the rest of the show so far, they proceed to act like regular teenage kids without any kind of they're not displaying any like improvements or heightened reasoning or memory or communication. They are written like children, completely just like children. And I just think that's so inconsistent, and I'm
Mm,
just it's been kind of the main source of drama too. Like it's a
mhm,
lot about the old generation manipulating and kind of discarding the new generation for their own benefit, which I understand that like metaphor, but I just think that the way that it's written is kind of convenient, and I wish that
hmm.
they had fleshed out the kids' characters a little bit better and made them a little bit more intelligent.
Fair. So have you seen episode 5 yet?
No, no, four was the last episode I saw.
Okay. I feel like as an Alien fan, you're gonna love episode 5. I don't want to give too much away, but it's been out for a few days. But I saw the first 6 episodes early.
Oh, okay.
So I've been sitting with them for a while. I see
Yeah.
what you mean about the kids. I guess I took it as their consciousness was never going to just like automatically evolve, that they were just going to be kids in this like invincible exoskeleton, I guess. And obviously there's like a very obvious Peter Pan allegory, but this show's kind of the reverse, where it's never grow up, but this show is constantly trying to push them to grow up too fast in a very like insanely violent crazy world that's kind of way too much. And I guess it's like the whole, like obviously Alien's always about the corporate overlord. That's the big bad of the Alien franchise. And I think what I loved that this show does is that, unlike some of the Alien movies, and I love the Aliens, and then Romulus I really like too, mostly because they focus. I mean, Alien kind of hides the corporate thing until the end, but what this show does is it wears it right on its sleeve. And I like the fact that they kind of try to humanize the aliens, not even just the xenomorph, but all of the new weird alien species. And to the fact that like they're like, what they're doing may be very violent, but it's like that's what they were created to do, and they're just doing what they were meant to create. And I like the fact that they're kind of being like, yeah, greed and corporation is the villain, not everyone else. But I think basically episode 5 is a flashback episode, and it's almost like a recreation of Alien 1, basically.
Oh, nice. Like, it does it. I guess I'm guessing it goes back to what happened on the ship at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. I mean, it keeps. I keep watching. I think the most interesting part are the creatures. You know, the xenomorphs, the
Oh,
new creatures they've introduced. That eye thing
the
is
eye
a
thing.
really
Ooh.
interesting idea. And I think Timothy Oliphant's been really good too as the lead synth. So there's definitely qualities of the show I like. There's things I take issue to, but it's very entertaining still. You know, like even if there's things I'm not digging about it, it's got high entertainment value for me. And I think the xenomorph stuff's been done really well. I know I've seen like
Yeah.
criticism of the special effects, but I really haven't felt like they've been terrible. I've enjoyed them.
Yeah. I've actually been so impressed with how cinematic a TV show can look, because
Yeah,
obviously there's a lot of high budget TV shows on now. That's not a new thing. But this one truly looks like a movie. But it's just and big shout out to hour-long episodes. Like true
yeah,
hour-long episodes. Big shout out to that. Because I
yeah,
guess Noah Hawley, I write about TV for Collider, so I do a lot of research on this stuff. And Noah Hawley likes to do 10-episode seasons. That's his
yeah. He did
thing.
Fargo, right?
Yep. And the show Legion,
Yeah,
that's actually an X-Men show, but it's
yeah,
the most un-X-Men show you'll ever watch. It's incredible and super
yeah,
fucking weird and trippy. So he wanted to do this in 10, but budgetary wise, they're like, you can do 8. And from how this show looks, I get it. And the xenomorph is a dude in a suit. And they have one is like a full like animatronic like thing. So it's like even the xenomorph stuff's pretty practical for the most part, which is it looks amazing. Like it looks really, really good. I think some people have said it doesn't look slimy enough. I'm like, that's such a wild criticism.
yeah. I think it looks fine, and I think they did great too.
Yeah, and I think you'll really like episode 5 then, because like it's like straight up an homage to 1, but very different. Because for one, there's so many different creatures, and I think Noah Hawley succeeded in what Ridley Scott. don't even want to say failed at, because I don't think that was the point of the movie, but he adds so much character depth to Morrow, the cyborg that we've seen, obviously like the sole survivor of the ship that crashes. They
Yeah.
add a lot to his character and kind of recontextualizes what his character is for this series, and kind of recontextualize Wayland Yutani as well. And there's a big reveal in this episode plot wise that makes sense why they moved it to where it is, because obviously they could have easily just put this in the beginning of the series and played it out like that. But even Holly said, if we did that, then it would just be Alien. Everyone would think the whole show is just Alien recreated, and I didn't want that, because that's not what the show is. So it is very smartly put in here, especially after episode 4. It ends in that wild cliffhanger with Wendy talking to the fucking xenomorph, which is fucking crazy. And I know he said he's planned for multiple seasons of this, if it does well, which a lot of people are talking about this, and I think it dethroned Netflix in like the highest streamed like series. And I think Netflix has held that title for like the last like 11 weeks, and Alien Earth topped it. So I would have to imagine this is definitely going to get renewed for at least a second season.
I hope so.
Yeah, so I'm just so interested to see where it goes, because it's 2 years before the events of Alien, and I feel like they're going to tie into them like calling the Nostromo and being like, no, you have to go to LV426 or whatever. Like I feel like that's going to happen within the show, which I think is really exciting to feel something, because it's like, as cool as the Alien franchise is, the only thing that's really connective between them is Ripley. A lot of them span decades or hundreds of years. So there's not a lot that kind of feel cohesive as far as like, interconnecting things. And I think that's another thing I've respected with the show, is it building out like the lore of the corporations and the Earth, which obviously has never been talked about ever. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like that's such an interesting thing to be able to explore. Because like obviously when people hear Alien Earth, they're like, what? They're gonna go to Earth? That's everything's in space. So it's been a cool journey. I'm very excited, because I don't know how it ends. There's 2 episodes I haven't seen, and I'm just
I think that's one of the
waiting.
commendable things about the show is that it has the guts to world build and take it to new directions and flesh out some things that weren't even. It's not like in new Star Wars where it's like this is where they met, this is the lightsaber. It's like creating and exploring new concepts that are within the universe and things that I hadn't even really thought of before, and I think that's really cool. Like I said, I have some issues with some of the logistics, but as
For sure.
far as the overall direction of the show and where they're going and what they're like building with the world, I think it's really cool, and that keeps me watching and engaged. And I want to see where they go with all this stuff. Like they've introduced new aliens and new group of hybrids that had no idea was a thing, even between
Right.
Blade Runner or Alien. And it's like, okay, this is charting new territory, and that's not something a lot of shows are doing now. It's like a lot of retreads and rehashes,
For
and this
sure.
show's taking the developed concepts and taking them in a new direction, and that's probably the bravest thing that I think the show does, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that 100%. That is 100% right. It's so funny you mentioned that, because I did watch a legacy sequel horror movie this week also. I've been trying to catch up on 2025 movies. So I watched, I know you did last summer, the 2025 version.
I haven't seen that one yet, but I've seen the original 100 times.
It's so hard in a world where like the Scream legacy sequels exist, or 20 years later just came out this year, where that like I feel like redefined what a legacy sequel can be. Like relies on 0% nostalgia, tells its own thing within the same world. And like, or even like Final Destination Bloodlines came out this year, which I thought was really fun and actually like a pretty good movie. And that one focuses like the legacy character in that is Tony Todd, that delivers a beautiful monologue within that movie, which was not expecting, but so good. And I think the strength of that and the strength of the Scream movies too are they relied on the new cast to lead the story, and kind of the nostalgic characters are there and they kind of help a little bit. And I know Last Summer does that too, But man, do some of those characters have the worst lines to deliver within this movie. They just feel so like boilerplate. Like I think you can see one in the trailer. It just feels so like a nostalgia bait and not a good way. But the
Yeah, I
new
think that's what's turned me off of watching it so far because I haven't seen it, and I'm a huge fan of the first one, so I know I'm gonna get around to it, but I was kind of
yeah.
putting it off.
Yeah, there's some fun to be had with it for sure, but I left pretty disappointed. And I think
Yeah.
Die Hard, I know your Last Summer fans are going to be very mad with something. They do something where you're like, oh wow, okay, okay. And I remember some people being like, some people are gonna have some feelings about how this one goes, and I can definitely understand why. But the strong point was the new cast of characters, which they kind of get overshadowed by the nostalgia characters eventually, which is kind of a bummer. I think it's better when they kind of reboot this stuff and let those people shine. And
Yeah, I
I
feel
don't
like
think this
Scream did
movie
a
did that.
pretty good job of that, even though they incorporated the old ones. The new Scream movies are pretty fun, and
Yeah,
even though I think they did Dewey a little dirty,
they
the
did do them a little
incorporation
dirty.
of the old characters didn't really overshadow the new ones, and they let the new ones do their thing and had pretty good actors put in those positions. So I thought those pretty much delivered.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
oh
just
yeah, and then also the new Final Destination, I thought that was great. Even the
oh,
little, like you said, the little monologue Tony gave, which apparently he, wrote himself, and
yeah,
part of doing the scene, because it was like the last thing he was going to do, was he wanted to be able to, say something that heartfelt. And I feel like even just that scene gave the movie a little bit of heart and a little bit of weight. And I
100%.
also love that actor from that show, The 100, who played the one of the cousins. He's just really good. I like seeing him and stuff.
Yeah, that I saw that one. I went to the theater alone to watch that one because I remember the first two Final Destinations being such like you cannot drive behind a log truck and not feel
Yeah.
the utter anxiety because of the second movie. So it's such like a pop culture touchstone and probably so many of our lives that I was like, okay, I'm gonna rewatch the whole series. I think some of the last ones I never saw, which some of them are. I think four is pretty bad, but it's in that perfect kind of part of the 2000s where everyone started using CGI and they used it in very terrible ways, and that
Oh
movie
yeah.
is the pinnacle of that. But
Is four the
like I
one
mentioned
with the
before,
cars?
yes, the
Okay.
opening scene is kind of wild just because it's so utterly ridiculous. It is easily the most ridiculous opening scene. But five, the ending of five blew my mind because I did not know the ending of five. And I was like, wow, that's a twist. Good for them. And the opening of that one's pretty good. The bridge one. That one's a pretty good opening too. I mean, they're all pretty good, but that one
Yeah,
was
yeah.
pretty
The
solid.
first two were like legitimately pretty damn good. And the third
Yeah.
and fourth, I almost consider a little bit more comedies, but they're still
Yes.
great. And then the fifth, like, I feel like they tried to bring it a little back to the quality
For
of
sure.
one and two, and they did a mixed job, but I still love it. Yeah, that series, as silly as the concept is, has been pretty strong for horror series. I think.
Yeah, yeah, and they're making another one. The new one crushed, and people really liked it, so they're making another one, which is crazy because John Watts, the director of the Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy, I think helped write part of that movie or some of that
Oh
movie
wow.
at least. I know he was a driving force behind it, which is kind of cool. It's fun. I'm excited to see what they do next, especially with the way this one ended. I'm like, where are they gonna go? I don't know. I know the girl from two is still alive,
Okay.
and
Well then,
now
yeah, they should bring her back.
and there's been theories that Devon Sawa's character, the main character from one, is still alive somehow, even though they kill him off in two. But if they brought him back somehow, I think I'd be okay with it. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, he's been in things here and there. I thought he was great in that fucked up John Travolta movie, like The Fanatic, or I forget what it's
I don't
called,
think I've
but
seen
oh
that.
yeah, it's where John Travolta is a super fan of Devon Sawa's character, who's like a Hollywood
Whoa.
actor, and it gets really weird. But it's funny, that movie's directed by Fred Durst, and there's a part in it where Devon Sawa's
What?
like with his son, listening to the radio, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Limp Bizkit, this is the shit right here. This band's so like it's like an ad for Limp Bizkit in the movie directed by Fred Durst. It's so silly."
That's insane. I did not know Fenders directed movies.
Yeah. His first movie I think he directed was like a children's film about like a sports kids movie. Shocked me as well.
That's crazy. I need to watch this movie now. Fanatic.
Oh yeah, that's a recommendation for sure.
Oh, hell, I'm gonna watch this. I need
Yeah.
to.
Travolta's
That's amazing.
insane in it. I mean, his character, his performance it's a must watch.
I wonder if that's like a weird meta thing, because wasn't Devin Sawa Stan in the Eminem video Stan?
Oh
And
shit,
now it's the opposite way around. That's kind of
that's
crazy.
true. Yeah, full circle.
Yeah. That's wild. Wow. Well, thanks for that recommendation. That's good. I'm gonna think about that one for a while. The Fanatic. Fred Durst.
Yes, yeah, you got to check it out.
Amazing. Dude, thank you so much for doing this. This was a blast.
Yeah, thank you, man. I love talking movies anytime.
Amazing. Before we get out of here, please let the people know where they can find you, what Dance Gavin Dance has got going on.
Yeah, we just finished a big tour up, and we got our new record Pantheon coming out on the 11th of September. We put a ton of work into it, and we're always trying to push ourselves to write the best art and to be authentic and not, sell out to what we think people want to hear. And if you appreciate that, kind of heavy post-hardcore that kind of experiments with different genres and tries different things, then give us a listen.
100%. Yeah, I will always commend Dance Gavin Dance for being such like a cool, I say weird as a compliment, because I think being weird is the coolest thing you can do, and unique band to kind of hit a really cool like zeitgeist of like popularity. That's always cool to see bands not compromise themselves and still continue to get popular. So kudos for that. That's always the coolest thing to see, especially in counterculture and this kind of music. So congrats on that. Congrats on the new album and all the success that will continue to come your way. I am very sure. And if you are living under a rock, I will link everything Dance Gavin Dance below. If you want to start the podcast, you go to metalcorenerds.com. All the links are right there. And if you want to follow me on my personal account, it's at SeanXMa on Instagram and Twitter. And until next time, see you later, nerds.